Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a great break and are now feeling refreshed for our next panel, discussing human infrastructure, climate and health. An especially warm welcome to this panel's contributors, who have travelled a very long way from China, Malaysia and India and Reading to be with us today. Thank you. This panel will be again about an hour and 20 minutes long, with each speaker sharing their reflections on their topic for 10 minutes. And we're going to have a conversation between ourselves and plenty of time for audience questions. So do be thinking about what you might like to ask. So I'm going to get everyone to give briefly just say their name and give an audio description of themselves, audio visual description of themselves before we hear from their talks, before which I will give a more detailed introduction. So for those who weren't here for the morning, my name's Anita Sethi. I have black hair, brown skin, and I'm wearing a red dress. So it'd be great if you just say your name and give a brief audio description. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Hannah Cloak. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a white woman with brown long hair and a blue patterned top.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karan Shrestha, he, him. I have black hair with some grey, wearing spectacles and a black jacket. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Feifei Zhou. I'm a Chinese woman wearing all blacks, as all architects do, but colorful scarves because I'm feeling a bit cold in the space.
It's quite cold, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you for brightening things up. Thanks.
My name is Lina Liu. I'm a Malay interpreter. I'm from Malaysia. I'm Malaysian Chinese, so I have light tan skin. Wearing a colorful light mixed purple shirt and a suit, light blue and gray suit and black trousers and a belt and a black boots and a beige hat.
Thank you.
Okey, nama saya Jeffrey Salim. Saya orang asli Sungai Timun, berasal daripada Johor, Malaysia. Saya original orang asli, tak ada, bukan ciplak. Muka memang original asli. Orang Seletar di Johor.
My name is Jeffrey Salim. I'm the native person from called Orang Selatan in Johor, Malaysia. So my face looks like a typical original native person in Malaysia.
Yes.
Pakai apa?
Di kepala saya adalah dipanggil tajak. Tajak adalah satu melambangkan identiti orang asli di Johor, Malaysia.
I'm wearing something looks like a crown on my hat. It's called tajak in my language. It's the tradition for the native person in our country. This is where it's special occasion we wear this handcrafted crown. Oh, they call it hat. This is what we wear.
Okey, itu saja saya dapat terangkan. Mungkin nanti saya akan terangkan lebih lagi yang lain.
I might explain a bit more about my tajak, my crown later.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you all for being here. It's wonderful to have such an amazing gathering here today to share your wealth of experience. So first we're going to hear from Feifei. Feifei Zhou is a Chinese-born spatial and visual designer and founder of the studio Terry Stories. Her work explores the spatial, cultural and ecological impacts of industrialized built and natural environments through narrative-based spatial analysis and collaboration with social and natural scientists. She co-edited Feral Atlas, The More Than Human Anthropocene, and co-authored Field Guide to the Patchy Anthropocene, The New Nature. Feifei has previously taught at Columbia GSAPP, Cornell AAP, and Central St. Martin's University of the Arts, London. Wonderful to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. I'm here with my collaborator, Jeffrey with a project we did at the Thirst exhibition. So later, if you have a chance to have a look, please do. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Janice, for having us here. Wonderful to introduce myself just very briefly. My name is Feifei Zhou, and I have a spatial design studio called Terror Stories. It's a little bit of animation to make slides exciting. So as mentioned before, some of my projects, including a digital humanity project called the Feral Atlas, the Modern Human Anthropocene. I collaborated with three anthropologists, Anna Singh, Jennifer Deeger, and Alda Kellerman-Saxena. So coming from an architectural background, I collaborate a lot with specifically social scientists to explore the industrial effects of what we call the Anthropocene and how they get tangled up with non-human beings and created all these environmental and social influences. So just give you a glimpse of the kind of spatial analysis I do. These are large-scale visual analysis, very narrative-based, but using kind of shift scales and timeline and geographical locations to tell you complex stories, but with fine details. And recently, Us4 published a new book called Field Guide to the Apache Anthropocene, The New Nature, also by Stanford University Press. This goes hand in hand with Feral Atlas, so a printed book with a digital publication, but also can stand alone as a kind of printed book that offers more analytical explanations. But with the limit of time, I wanted to just jump into the project that we exhibit upstairs. So give you a very quick kind of introduction of the background where it takes place, and sure, Jeffrey will give you a bit more information. So the project sets itself at Johor Strait, and if you see the black line is a thin, narrow kind of strait that divides Singapore with Malaysia. I'm sorry, I'm speaking really fast. Sorry. So how the project came about in the beginning is when I was commissioned by Efless Architecture to work on a visual essay project. So at that time, I was collaborating with a research initiative based at University of California, Santa Cruz. And I extended this commission to now my collaborator, Zahira Suhaimi, who introduced me to Jeffrey Selim. And this project is called Shifting Porosities, which involves 3 drawings that formulate a kind of timeline that talks about the kind of porosities that proliferated through different kinds of human activities and shifted the way human and non-humans and their relationship to the environment. I don't have time to really get into it, but the drawing really is trying to show these kind of human-induced activities, particularly on industrial scale, and how it changes porosity and permeativity changes in the local environment. Just to give you a quick reference, a lot of the drawing elements are based on Jeffrey's photographs. Then I received some funding to be able to actually go on site for the first time. And continuing from the previous project, I started to become very interested in Singapore as a country that more than 20% of its landmass actually is based on reclaimed land. So the history of how the coastline has been constantly shifting become a very big interest of mine. And when I first visited Singapore, I met up with now my collaborator, environmental chemist Gonzalo Carrasco, depicted in the picture here. He does a lot of lab tests on water samples. So I followed him on 2 sampling trips, which really kind of opened my eye to how something from microscopic scale can really tell us something that's on planetary scale. So I received another commission by Diriyah Biennial that took place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And we turned this collaboration into an interactive mapping project. So just give you a quick glimpse again of how you can use your cursor to interact with different kinds of heavy metal, natural, unnatural organic matter that is released from activities that take place on the reclaimed land. So what we wanted to explore is through a timeline, again, understanding the kind of human-induced activity has releasing these microscopic scale toxins that completely shifted our waterscape. So just give you a very, very quick visual. So here on the east coast, where a lot of housing was built, we can trace a lot of copper that's used in replenishing the loans on these housing projects. And on the world's second largest port in a small country like Singapore, you can find a lot of zinc that's used to prevent the ship body from rusting. Here on Jurong Island, you can trace a lot of unnatural organic matter from this kind of petrochemical activities that take on. And finally, to us, this large reclaimed island have a lot of chemical activities, chemical plants that release zinc, cadmium, copper, a mixture of heavy metal pollutant. And then after the project, I became, again, very interested in what I guess I learned from my collaborator Gonzalo, how a lot of people look at the importance of the ocean, but forgetting how fresh water, so from inland, through river, down to the coast, and through amphibious zones to the saltwater, has always been an interactive relationship. Rather than one is important to the other, they help feeding each other through a constant exchange of nutrients, of bacteria even, of solid matter. So understanding this critical relationship that to me has been overlooked, when Janice invited me for this project, I was very interested in how we can depict that through, again, the similar geographic locations. So I'm not going to get into detail because I believe you will have a chance to look into it. But this two-screen installation, again, worked by Zahira Suhaimi, my collaborator, and I, wanting to show you how on the left-hand side, an interactive map where you can click different buttons to see how infrastructure projects throughout history has changed the way freshwater and seawater exchange, forming what we know as brackish water. When the brackish water zone has been disrupted on several levels, how that has changed human and non-human, not only activities, but livelihood practices. On the right-hand side, we made a short documentary shot by Jeffrey, and we interviewed different individuals from the Olan Selita community who dwell at different coastal areas, have been impacted by these kind of industrial activities. So side by side, you see a planetary point of view and the individual point of view, together telling you these complex interactions that maybe we don't get in mainstream media. And Wellcome Collection have this wonderful model to interact on the screen. Please have a play when you have a time later. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Faye. That was absolutely fascinating. Thank you. And now we're going to hear from Jeffrey along with interpreter Lena. Thank you both for being here. Jeffrey Salim is a self-taught photographer and proud member of the Orang Seletar community. A fisherman by trade, his deep connection to the mangrove-enriched coast of the Johor Straits is both personal and professional. He began photographing in 2002 with a camera found by his younger brother, and over nearly 2 decades, he's used his lens to document his community's daily life, capturing moments of joy, resilience, and change. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Okey, terima kasih pada pengacara majlis
Thank you very much for the organizer.
kerana sudi mengundang saya pada hari ini.
Thank you for inviting me.
First time saya datang ke sini daripada Johor ke Singapura dan ke London.
It's the first time I came to London from Malaysia, Johor, to
Perja-
Singapore, and then London, UK.
Perjalanan agak jauh.
It's such a long journey.
Kadang saya semasa di dalam kapal terbang merasakan adakah mimpi menjadi kenyataan.
During my flight, I was thinking, wow, my dream has come into reality now.
Sebab tidak ada orang Selatan berada di London di sini.
Because there is no orang Selatan, my native people in where I came from, came to London.
Okey, saya akan tunjukkan beberapa gambar yang di sini nanti.
I'm going to show you some pictures.
Okey, di sini kamu akan lihat
You're going to see
kampung saya.
my village.
Okey.
It's this one.
Okey. Di sini ada dua perkampungan orang asli Selatan.
On the other side, the other picture, you can see there are two more villages.
Okey, satu kampung Sungai Temon dan satu kampung Bakar Batu.
So there are two villages. One is Kampong Sungai
Temon
Temun.
dan kampung Bakar Batu.
The other one's called Kampong Batu Batu. Kampong means
Bakar Batu.
village.
Yes. Sebenarnya orang Selatan ada 9 perkampungan.
Orang Selatan, we have 9 villages.
Okey, apa yang kamu lihat di map ataupun gambar di tertera di atas adalah banyak projek-projek di persekitaran perkampungan kami.
What you are seeing now is the project I created for about my village.
Banyak kemusnahan hutan bakau yang berlaku.
And you will see many mangroves has been destroyed in our environment.
Pencemaran alam sekitar.
And the pollutions of our environment.
Kalau kamu lihat ada dua anak sungai di satu di Sungai Danga dan satu di Sungai Sekudai.
You can see two rivers. One is Sungai
Sekudai dan
Sekudai.
dan Sungai Danga.
The other one's called Sungai Dengar.
Bila air hujan,
When it rains,
air itu akan mengalir ke persekitaran perkampungan kami.
the dirty water will go into the sea all around us.
Okey, sebab banyak penambakan
Because there are many new developments and
yang ada di sekitar perkampungan kami
around our village.
menjadi kesan pada nelayan orang Selatan.
It's making a huge impact in our lives.
Hasil tangkapan pun berkurangan.
So fishing when we try to fish, so we couldn't fish more as we used before.
Okey, kalau di sebelah situ ada orang Selatan ada ternak kupang.
And orang Selatan we catch mussels.
Tapi hasil sekarang sudah berkurangan.
But now we can't catch that many.
Tidak macam dulu lagi lah.
It's not the same like before.
Okey, ini adalah gambar moyang kami.
This is the pictures of my ancestors.
Yang pernah dulu tinggal di dalam sampan berkajang.
They used to live on the sampan.
Berkajang.
Berkajang. So the sampan is the wooden boat.
Okay. Tinggal di dalam sampan, masak di dalam sampan, beranak di dalam sampan.
So they live on the sampan, cook in the sampan, give birth in the sampan, inside the sampan.
Ini gambar ni lebih kurang pada tahun 1950-an.
These pictures were taken in 1950s.
Saya berbanyak terima kasih pada mendiang Dr. Ivan Polinin.
I am very grateful to the person who contributed the pictures.
Tanpa beliau shoot ini gambar,
If the person didn't take the picture,
mungkin masyarakat kami tidak dapat lihat
most likely our modern people in the modern days will never ever seen the pictures how it looked like in the past.
Bagi saya, gambar itu adalah satu momen yang penting.
So for me, photography is a very important asset
Kerana masa berlalu begitu pantas.
because time flies so rapidly.
Okey, kalau kamu lihat di sebelah tu adalah mini galeri orang Seleta.
And on that one, on the far left, you can see this is a mini gallery of Orang Selata.
Pada tahun 2011,
In the year 2011,
dirasmikan galeri di kampung.
this gallery was launched.
Okey. Kami panggil 9 kampung orang Seleta untuk melihat mini galeri di kampung saya.
So we invited everyone in all the 9 villages to come and have a look at this gallery.
Dan kebanyakan orang tua-tua tahu ini gambar.
So the older generation, they are aware, so they recognize those pictures.
Okey, kalau kamu lihat di gambar di bawah tu ada nampak satu keluarga.
In the pictures, you can see on the far right corner,
Ada sebahagian yang masih hidup.
some of them are still alive.
Sekarang dia berada di kampung orang asli Pasir Putih.
Now they live in Kampung Orang Asli Pasir Putih.
Okey. Mini galeri ni hampir usang sebenarnya. Dan kami cuba mencari dana untuk memperbaiki balik saya punya komuniti galeri kampung.
This gallery is a bit run down, so we are trying to fundraise to make this gallery a lot better.
Okey. Masyarakat kami tidak lari dengan air.
Our community do not part from water.
Masyarakat kami mempunyai skill sendiri bila menyelam di dalam air.
So we dive into the water.
Kanak-kanak berumur 10 tahun ke atas akan belajar memegang lembing untuk mencari ikan.
So any kids above 10 years old will be taught how to dive into the water and use the spear to catch fish.
Sekiranya kita tidak biasa, kita tidak akan mendapat walaupun satu ekor ikan.
But nowadays we can't even catch one fish
Kerana ikan tu agak laju,
because the fish they swim very fast nowadays.
bukan macam seperti dipelihara. Come. Then
It's not like you can just say come, the fish will come to you.
Okey. Dari zaman nenek moyang kami,
During the era of my ancestors,
masyarakat kami juga suka memburu babi hutan.
we also go hunting.
Tapi
But
hutan di pesisiran di Selat Johor hampir berkurangan dan banyak musnah.
unfortunately, the jungles all around us in Johor, they've been destroyed.
Hanya tinggal sedikit saja.
Only very tiny tiny bit left.
Memburu babi hutan mempunyai skill tersendiri.
Hunting wild boars is part of our habit.
Okey. First, anjing mau pandai.
First of all, the dog must be very, very smart.
Okey. Masyarakat kami akan training anjing di dalam hutan untuk memburu babi hutan.
Our community train dogs to hunt wild boars
Because sebab anjing tu akan ada letak ubat untuk mengesan babi hutan saja.
so because the dog were trained using certain types of smell, so that the dog would recognize and hunt and look for wild boars.
Sebab kita tak nak dia cari binatang lain, kita nak dia cari babi saja.
So we don't want them to look for other animals, but only focus in wild boars.
Okey, sebab selain daripada anjing, orang yang berburu babi dan menggunakan jaring babi hutan.
We are also using a net to catch the wild boars.
Ini agak penting bagi masyarakat kami sampai sekarang masih memburu.
This is a very important activity in our community.
Ini adalah yang nenek Tina.
This is in memory of my grandma.
Dia kampung Bakar Batu.
She lives in Kampong Bakar Batu.
Mendiang nenek Tina orang yang peramah sebenarnya.
She's a very friendly person.
Dia terpaksa menjaga cucu-cucu dia.
She has to look after her grandchildren.
Dia adalah gambar yang terakhir sebelum dia meninggal.
These pictures were captured before she passed away.
Saya suka shoot dia punya gambar.
I love taking pictures of her.
Dia punya wajah dia.
I love capturing her face.
Dia pernah cerita pada kami.
She has told us many stories.
Di Sungai Danga.
In Sungai Danga, the river.
Semasa dia mencari lokan.
When she was looking for food.
Okay. Dia melintasi sungai.
She was crossing between rivers.
Ada satu ekor buaya.
There was a crocodile.
Dia makan dia punya anjing.
The crocodile ate her dog.
Pada masa itu saya bertanya pada nenek Tina.
So I asked my grandma.
Sebaik itu buaya makan dia awak punya anjing.
It's better that the crocodile ate your dog.
Sebenarnya buaya mau attack dia punya cucu.
In fact, the crocodile wanted to attack your grandchildren.
Ya, sebab tempat saya tu banyak buaya sekarang.
The truth is there are a lot of crocodiles near where I live.
Ini adalah pakaian tradisional orang Selita.
This is the traditional costume of orang Selita.
Okey. Pakaian ini agak menggunakan tumbuh-tumbuhan sebelum jadi sebenarnya.
This costume were made by natural plants.
Bila ada majlis keramaian,
when there are special occasions,
masyarakat kami akan menganyam dan membuat pakaian ini.
My community will pick the plants and will use our hands and make them.
Tapi akan menyebabkan kemusnahan hutan yang begitu ketara di tempat kami.
Unfortunately, due to the massive forest deforestation. Am I pronouncing the word correctly? Yeah.
Banyak projek-projek di persekitaran dan projek Iskandar di kawasan kami.
So especially Project Iskandar, a special project, it has destroyed a lot of forest around us.
Pakaian dan tumbuh-tumbuhan membuat pakaian ini agak sukar nak dapat sekarang.
So the plants, well, we use the special plants to make this costume. Now those plants are disappearing. So it's very hard for us to make those costumes.
Kena pergi jauh.
So we have to travel very far to find them.
Banyak kadang masyarakat tidak tahu apa kepentingan di hutan bakau.
Most people do not understand the importance of mangrove for us.
Hanya orang asli yang tahu.
But the dogs of our dogs will understand.
Okey, yang ni saya shoot gambar di area Forest City.
So I shot these pictures in Forest City.
Sebenarnya saya tertarik di taman di area Pulau Merambung.
I took the pictures in an island called Pulau Melambong.
Okey. Di area sini,
in this area,
banyak kehidupan marine, ya betulnya seperti seagrass, kuda air, kehidupan-kehidupan yang seperti
you
ini.
see a lot of sea lives like seahorses, seagrass, and all sorts of sea lives.
Okey. Tapi sebahagian di Forest City sudah habis.
but most of them were not there anymore
Sebab banyak buat projek kan Iskandar.
because of the modern development.
Ini saya ikut saya punya saudara pada pukul 3 pagi.
So I followed in these pictures. I went out to the sea with my cousin at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Daripada kampung ke sini lebih kurang 1 jam setengah.
It took us the travel journey took us about an hour and a half.
Di ada sepadan Singapura dan Johor. Okay.
So you could see on the other pictures, there's a long bridge there. That's the border between Malaysia and Singapore.
Okay. Ini adalah satu peternak kupang bagi orang Selita.
This is the place where we fish for our fish for mussels.
Sejak penambakan pasir, pencemaran air,
Since the land reclamations, the water's been polluted.
ekonomi kupang agak kurang.
So the economy of the mussels has reduced.
30 tahun dulu,
30 years ago,
sebelum projek Iskandar projek,
before Iskandar project,
satu tali kupang ni boleh angkat lebih kurang 30 kilo.
so you see that the net, the guy was fishing. So 30 years ago, when we fish, the weight is about 30 kilos.
Sekarang hanya 4-5 kilo saja.
Now only 4 to 5 kilos.
Sebab banyak kupang warna hitam.
Because most of the mussels now, the color is black.
Di Johor permintaan kupang agak tinggi.
So in Johor, the area, there are a lot of mussels.
Orang Selesa terpaksa menggadaikan nyawa untuk menyelam mencari kupang.
So because of this problem, the Orang Seletar, we have to travel around the sea in that area.
You tahu ini gambar?
You can see in the picture, in that
Atas?
one far right, on the top.
Situ sebenarnya banyak buaya.
Over there are a lot of crocodiles.
Kalau mau nyelam boleh datang ke tempat kampung saya.
If you like diving, you are welcome to try.
Pembangunan memberi kesan pada masyarakat kami.
Modernizations and land reclamations have made a huge impact in our lives.
Dan juga masyarakat seperti nelayan-nelayan Cina, Melayu dan yang lain.
So it also impacted Chinese and Malay fishermen.
Di sebelah tu adalah kampung saya.
Over there, in the left-hand side, you can see my village.
Pencemaran tu agak teruk lah.
The pollution is terrible.
Bila air kotor mengalir tu,
So when the dirty water is spreading around,
dan tempat nelayan mencari ikan udang agak terhimpit.
so now the place, the area where we can for fishermen to fish became smaller and smaller.
Ini ada first photo book.
This is my first ever photo book.
Semasa di exhibition di Kuala Lumpur.
This was exhibited in Kuala Lumpur.
Sekiranya anda nak dapat gambar-gambar saya, boleh email grimis.my.gmail.
If you like to get hold of this photo book, you can email me. That's my
friend.
email.
Grimis.
Email di mana?
Oh, not. Saya tak tulis di sini. Kamu boleh email grimis.my.
You can email grimis.my.
My friend lah.
That's his friend.
Okay, ini gambar-gambar yang ada saya letak di mini galeri kampung lah.
So these are the pictures I put them on at the mini gallery in my village.
Okay, itu saja saya dapat kongsi pada hari ini. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey and Lena, for a powerful talk. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I'm also thrilled to introduce Hannah Cloak, who is a physical geographer, natural hazards researcher, climate scientist, and hydrologist at the University of Reading, UK. She leads a wide programme of research on the development of early warning systems for natural hazards, particularly for floods, droughts, and heat waves. Hannah advises government, forecasting authorities, and humanitarian agencies on national and international flooding incidents and forecasting science. She is currently a Fellow of the European Centre for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts and has worked as a research partner for the EU's Copernicus Emergency Management Service for floods since 2003. Hannah has won many awards and was appointed an OBE in 2019 for services to flood forecasting and the development of hazard early warning systems. Wonderful to have you here. Thank you.
Hello everyone, it's really lovely to be here with such a diverse range of people. I've never spoken at such an event before, and it's a real privilege to be here. I don't know how you came to the Welcome collection today. Every time I come to London, I have to divert to the river. It's one of my favourite things to do. It drives my family crazy. But I often stop on one of the bridges and I look down at the water and I think to myself, wow, look at all that water. How beautiful is that water? But more importantly, I start to think about, where has all that water come from? It helps me to imagine the water like little blue beads, a bit like the ones I've got round my wrist at the moment, little tiny droplets of water. And I kind of imagine that I'm stopping time and that I can make the water stand really still underneath my feet in whatever swirling patterns it's making. And I imagine I can reach down and pick up a whole handful of these little blue beads of water and pick them out one by one. Now, if you've read There Are Rivers in the Sky, you'll be very familiar with this concept, because each of these little blue droplets of water has its own history. Where did this little one come from? Perhaps it fell in a burst of rain yesterday and has washed straight off our concreted city into the River Thames. Where did this one come from? Well, perhaps it's been in the ground, perhaps up near Reading, where I live, and has seeped its way down through the soil into the river a little bit more slowly, so it's taken a longer time to get all the way down here to London. And where's this other one come from? Well, perhaps this one has been buried in the ground, perhaps for hundreds of years, and has only very, very slowly made its way out through a spring, perhaps, or even a well, and then flown downstream towards London. So each of these little droplets has this history. And it's also got its own destiny. Most of them are flowing down towards the sea, and they'll be caught up in that hydrological cycle again, evaporated back up into the atmosphere, only to rain down again at another point in time. Now, this is really important because this is how we forecast floods. This is how we forecast droughts. We use giant computer models of the atmosphere and the Earth system to follow all of these little droplets of water wherever they're going, so that we can say when a flood is going to happen, because we can follow all of the water as it bunches together in our rivers and perhaps sweeps over villages or towns. Or we can say, actually, that water hasn't reached particular places, and this place is going to be in drought, and we need to be careful, and perhaps we need to not wash our cars with drinking water, and we need to conserve our water more carefully. My job is really interesting and fun, and you can see that I'm completely fascinated by water. I really am just a little girl who likes to fling myself into the nearest river whenever I possibly can. Again, really embarrassing my family. When I was a little girl, my grandparents were in Devon, and we used to go on Dartmoor, and so I used to fling myself into some Dartmoor rivers. And if you were at the panel earlier, you would have heard how very important those experiences are for a young child. And so I've carried that with me. It's that love of water, that ability to imagine within the water as well. One of my favorite games was imagining that I was a water goddess and I could control all the water wherever it was going. And I've taken that through into my career now, where I'm building global flood forecasting systems, trying to see where all of that water is going. But it's also a difficult job. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and I can see on our global forecasting system that some very serious floods are heading towards people. And when you're sitting in Reading, looking at the future, that can be very, very scary indeed, particularly if you think that that message will not get through to people on the ground. Back in 2021, there were some very serious floods in Germany. To be honest, there are serious floods all the time, all the way around the world, but this is one of those that might have made it through the news media, and you might have been aware of this flood. It was a terrible flood. It killed hundreds of people, and it came sweeping through villages, completely destroying houses, carving away the riverbanks. All of that human infrastructure that we'd put in was just washed away in one big swoop. It was terrifying for the people involved. It's really difficult to imagine that type of flood if you've not experienced that type of flood before. The flood waves were several meters high, perhaps as tall as 2 double-decker buses. If you can imagine that sweeping down towards you in the middle of the night as well. This is a really scary flood. And floods are terrifying and scary. And that ability to imagine that type of danger is really important. But unfortunately for the people who were living there, they were not able to imagine that danger in many cases. And the people who were taking decisions, who were responsible for example, evacuating people or making sure that they were not near the river, they couldn't imagine that that type of flood would happen. I diverted my family a couple of summers ago to the River Ahr in Germany so I could go and have a look at it and in fact stand in it because I find that really helpful. And it was just up to my ankles. You know, it's a tiny little beautiful stream in a very beautiful part of Germany. And yet it can turn into this ferocious beast which destroys lives and wrecks livelihoods. So our ability to forecast is really important, and my day job is very important. We build these big models, we use satellite data, we suck it into our models, all of those measurements of the planet, of our rivers, of how much it's raining, all of that information gets put into these models. They run on giant supercomputers, which of course take heat and energy and water to run. But they are very important in predicting ahead of time when a big weather event or a big flood is going to happen. But what is the point of all of that exercise if people are not receiving the warnings that they need ahead of time? And so another part of my job is trying to work out that imagination gap. We've got the technology that we need. In many cases, we've got the infrastructure that we need, floodgates, for example, diverting water into giant storage zones, perhaps having, simple things like green roofs that can slow the water down, or upstream where we can hold on to the water in our boggy areas or our peatlands. We know how to do this. It's not particularly difficult, but there is an imagination gap, definitely, between the ability to forecast ahead of time that a flood is coming and our ability to get people out of the way. And it happens again and again. The Valencia floods happened quite recently too, and the same story happened there. People went and tried to move their cars and got stuck in the underground garages, not understanding, not being able to imagine what would happen when a very big flood comes through. The same happened in Texas. People were camping next to a river, young children were camping next to a river, and they did not receive a warning because there was no investment in the siren system. The people who were responsible for this could not imagine that that type of event was come through. So this imagination gap is a real issue and one of the most important things that we are missing in our infrastructure of how we prepare for floods and droughts. Now, I live quite near the River Thames, not too close to the River Thames because I'm a flood scientist, so it's really important not to live right next to the river because it tends to flood. But I live close enough, so I go walking along the River Thames, occasionally running if I'm feeling up to it. But it's beautiful. It's really important for my mental health. It's really important to watch the water flowing. I have a wonderful friend called Sarah who lives on a houseboat on the River Thames quite near Reading, and she sometimes lets me come and stay on her houseboat so I can dive into the water off of her boat. But of course, there are some days where I don't dive off the boat into the water because the water quality is too poor. It's disgusting. The sewage has been released, and on some of those days, it hasn't even been raining. So there is a massive problem with the water quality in the rivers in this country, and of course elsewhere as well. We have really damaged them very substantially. We are more aware now, so we're monitoring more and more to see how dirty our water is. But we should be able to swim in our rivers. And I am certainly absolutely distraught that I can't just fling myself into the Thames whenever I want to. We can use technology to help with that, but more and more it's basically about people making the decisions to make sure that we can keep our rivers clean and taking those really tough decisions, because it is an unpopular decision to put up water bills, for example, but actually how else are we going to get out of this problem? That's a very interesting question to ask. Who is going to fund this ridiculous shortfall in our water infrastructure in this country? I don't know the answers to these problems. We also have the same problem with water security as well. I turn my tap on and I think, yes, the water's probably going to come out. But we have been in a situation quite recently in the heat wave in 2022 where we got very close to not having water in some parts of the country. Right now, we're in drought in some parts of the country still. We still haven't had enough rain in order to have those water reserves that we need. And as we're walking into a changing climate, we know that these problems are going to get worse. We know that the weather is becoming more volatile, our rainfall patterns are changing, and so we should be expecting more floods. In London, for example, we know that intense rainfalls mean that there's more risk of flooding in our cities. And of course, we've paved over everything, and it does just rush off, perhaps even down into the underground system or into people's basements, lots of people living underground in London. So there are lots of risks coming towards us from all over the water cycle, through floods and droughts and water security and water pollution as well. I am optimistic though, and I know in one of the previous panels we were talking about AI and the use of those types of techniques, and they're not very popular with people. Generally people kind of go AI and we're staying away from it. But we are using those techniques to help with forecasting, to help with being able to predict when and where a flood is going to happen much, much faster than we could before, and with more accuracy in some cases. And so it's actually quite an exciting area if you're doing water forecasting, the promise of AI. Of course, you've got to balance that with some of the risks, and you've got to balance it with the environmental impact of data centers and supercomputers. But I am hopeful that where we have more recycling, where we have more natural generation of energy, that actually this is a very positive step and we can use this very wisely. So I have an exercise for you before I stop speaking, which is to stop next time you go to the River Thames, or if you're not passing a river because of whatever reason, you can just, the water bottle that's in your hand, the glass of water that you sip, first thing in the morning, or perhaps a cup of tea or coffee, it's got water in it, stop and think, where has all this water come from? When did it fall as rain? Where did it fall as rain? What pathways through the landscape has this water taken? And that will give you a real emotional connection to whatever you're just about to drink, or if you happen to be crossing a river, your journey towards your next destination. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for a fascinating talk. I'm also delighted to introduce Karan Shrestha, who is an artist based in Kathmandu, Nepal, and Delhi, India, His artistic practice includes drawings, sculpture, photographs, films, and texts that speak to the complex, entangled relations of Nepal's recent history. Shrestha presents works that are an archive of the terrain, political histories, and transient memories, and a speculative world that suspends reality to question ideas of progress while tracing connections to the ecological, cultural, and socio-economic dimensions of Nepali life. Shrestha has work in numerous regional and international institutions, and we're thrilled that he's going to present here at Welcome today. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for coming. I'll speak about some of the questions and readings of the past few years, my practice, and you can see the works that they show later on. I'll get straight into it. So, often referred to as the Earth's third pole, the Himalayas are the youngest mountain ranges and one of the most vulnerable regions of the planet, holding the largest amount of freshwater ice and snow outside the polar regions. Frozen reservoirs of fresh water, known as glaciers, are located in the high mountain areas in Nepal, generally above 4,500 meters. With increasing temperatures, snow and ice rapidly defrost, resulting in meltwater that collects in natural dams such as moraines or ice dams forming glacial lakes that continuously expand in volume. The sudden release of water, sediment, and debris stored behind the glacial lakes culminates in a glacial lake outburst flood or GLOF. Since 1977, there have been 26 GLOF events, 14 originated in Nepal, and 11 had transboundary impacts. According to EC mode, glaciers in the Hindu Kush Himalaya melted 65% faster between 2011 and 2020 compared to the previous decade. Nepal lost approximately 25% of its glacier area between 1980 and 2010, with the increasing frequency of natural disasters. Despite these warnings, so many reports prepared by development banks that are major players in donor economies funding massive infrastructure projects make a case for meltwater to be utilized for hydropower generation. Local communities are displaced with minimal to no compensation, land is reshaped, and water is reduced to a resource to generate profit. Rivers in Nepal flow north to south, as you can see in the map here, and are seasonally fed, with most rivers carrying significant amounts of sediments, making reservoirs ineffective for flood control. LAURNIP, which is Lawyers Association for Human Rights of Nepalese Indigenous People, have been studying the impacts of hydropower projects on local communities and are advocating for their rights, among others. There's more on their website for those interested. Last September, the Kathmandu Valley was inundated, with the death toll being in hundreds, and major infrastructure damages, including bridges, highways, and hydropower stations. Floods across Nepal appear annually. In Kathmandu, the capital, the situation over the decades has exacerbated due to human actions. Rivers in the valley are not the same rivers my mother knew growing up. Rivers swelling during the monsoons were a natural occurrence. However, the soil and sand would enable absorption and gradual release, keeping the bigger rivers full even during the 8 dry months of the year. Nearly all inhabitants lived in the high-level lands then. Today, the valley has been remade with people building on low lands where floods routinely sweep over. Wetlands are considered wastelands until it has been built on. Land has been sealed with impervious surfaces that block the recharging of groundwater. Sand no longer blankets the riverbeds. Water flows through narrow channels walled on one or both sides of the riverbanks, squeezed and choked with waste. Fields have vanished to give way to concrete houses. Streams morphed into streets and roads cemented over rivers. We can see the condition of rivers in the Kathmandu Valley in these images. From all I've shared before about meltwater, floods, rain, images of abundant water can be conjured. However, most people in the valley purchase water to drink and for daily use. Water storage tanks mark Kathmandu's horizon. The mismanagement, the unequal distribution of water, like the unequal distribution of wealth, is characteristic of poor governance, which has led to untreated wastewater, with thousands of children dying each year due to waterborne diseases and intestinal parasitic infections. The small sculptures made from oil-based clay speak to the privatization and commodification of water. And in contrast to the beliefs of the Newar people from the valley, where it was sacred and a social duty to maintain the flow, as water must return to the earth or rivers and shared among all beings. This brass repousse work with pipes was made in collaboration with Tirtharal Sake. But Kathmandu being the capital, people can still access water, if not through pipes, then public taps. If not that, then purchasing water. In the south of Nepal, where majority of Nepal's population is concentrated, the Tarai region faces severe droughts. In places like Dhanusa, it hasn't rained for over 2 years. Water scarcity is a serious concern, and there are several reasons. The main cause being the destruction of the Chure ranges that would enable recharging of aquifers in the Tarai region. With growing settlements in the area, massive deforestation is taking place to accommodate large infrastructure projects. There's rampant illegal logging and sand extraction for construction. Furthermore, with climate change, the rainfall patterns have changed. Another reason observed is the excessive usage of chemical fertilizers like urea and Matiar soil that hardens the layer on the topsoil in farms. As a result, irrigation or rainwater doesn't seep into the ground and remains on the surface. Groundwater has severely declined. To install a bore well with 4 inches of water, drilling has to go past 500 feet into the ground, which is extremely expensive for the locals. In Chitwan National Park, Nepal's first protected area, indigenous communities like the Bote, Maji, Musar, Kumal, Tharu, and Chepang have been pushed farther into the margins as the park steadily expands. Despite holding licenses, locals aren't allowed to practice their livelihood of fishing in the rivers. They are accused for the depleting population of fish species. However, not far from the national park, industrial plants discharge toxic waste into the same river that goes ungoverned, as we see on the right. These drawings portray encounters between the army and the locals with licenses when they go to fish, which often result in violence. I came across this 17th century Newari manuscript from Kathmandu, commonly known as Thyasa Phu then, in a book about Nepali seasons and rain. Literally meaning folded book, Thyasa Phu illustrated scenes concerning drought, famine, and rain patterns, mapping realities of South Asian weather. So expanding on this vocabulary, I began making a flow-disrupted realigns. The work holds images and words together to survey the state of water in Nepal in the 21st century. The wide-ranging format of the manuscript gets at the interconnectedness of climate change, negligent governance and state corruption, social stratification, indigenous and local communities' relationship to water and land, plant species that alter ecologies, infectious diseases, and contamination. I've had the pleasure to work with many contributors who have written pieces that I've learned a lot from and can share as well. Nepal has 6 major climatic zones and 125 distinct ethnic groups, and the association to water varies depending on the topography. This is relayed through the community's rituals, songs, and stories, where water is revered as a force offering and altering life. This knowledge, the interconnectedness, is what I get at with the commission for the Welcome Collection that is part of the ongoing exhibition. Thank you. It was a lot, Espo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for such a powerful talk, really moving set of images there. Thank you. And we will be going for lunch at 1:20, so in about 11 minutes. So we're going to have some audience questions, but if we can kind of take 3 all at once and then see how much the panelists get to answer. So if you're in the room, please raise your hand and wait for me to direct someone to bring you the microphone. And remember, this is being live streamed. If you're online, please comment in the YouTube chats if you're signed in. But do remember that your questions will be in the public domain and subject to YouTube's privacy policy. Natalie will share comments and questions with you by raising her hand with the microphone. We welcome thoughts, comments, and lived experience, as long as it's not too long, because we just have 10 minutes left before lunch. And please ensure you're respectful to others in the room and stay on topic. So, does anyone have a question? Yes, we'll take gentleman here and lady here. We'll take 3 in a row questions, and then we can have kind of short answers.
Yes, thank you for a very rich and diverse program. We just came in from the United States, and my question regards climate change. Many people in our country are uninformed or have misinformation about it. And is anybody in the panel willing to address the concerns that we have about climate change and come up with an answer to people that deny that climate change exists?
Thank you. And we'll take another question, and then we can answer them in a row. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed all the talks. I'm a bit nervous, but my question is to Hannah. Is it? Yes. Thank you. I really, really enjoyed your conversation, and to create systems and structures that will help monitor and sort of predict floods. It's so important. And I grew up in India, where I've seen massive floods have been affected by them, and it's still happening. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. And I wonder the systems and the structures that we create in global north, in a country like UK, which has more financial backup, which has more resources, how can we help or support other countries that don't have that? Is there a future where we get there? Because technically Pakistan is a country which is responsible for like one of the most least carbon footprint, and we owe it to global south. We sort of owe to help share our resources, our energy, our understanding, our finances. And while we are creating these incredible, whatever it is called, I don't know, how do we sort of share that with other countries who are equally suffering? And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Should we? Yeah,
Hello.
quickly if you can. Thanks.
I've got a question, which is, we've heard a lot today about value, the value of water, the cultural, spiritual, natural, and economic value of water. And one of the things we haven't touched upon today is about the transport of water, embedded water, in everything we consume and services. We talked about it in data, which is being transported around the world through global supply chains. So my question to the panel is it a political problem, or is it an economic problem, or is it a knowledge problem that we're not valuing water correctly?
Thank you. Do any of you want to leap into any of those 3 questions? Yeah.
I'll have a go at the really difficult ones. Climate change and the US. What a problem. And I certainly don't know the answer. But from my experience talking to people who are not believers in climate change, perhaps, or even just a little bit skeptical about things, is you have to start where people are. Now, floods is a really easy way to do that. because floods happen all the time. You get hurricanes come through. And actually, a lot of the good climate science is being done under the banner of other things, certainly in the US. There's a horrible gap in funding, though, and a brain drain of scientists from the US. And I very much hope that it can be done in a different way while we're trying to sort out some of those issues. But I agree, it's a terrible problem. In terms of the global south and how we can be supporting the global south, I think that we are moving towards things like open data, open forecasts. So that is one very good thing. So anyone in the whole world can get hold of the latest weather forecasts or the latest flood forecasts and can use that information and are supported to use that information so they can take action ahead of time. Now that assumes that you can evacuate a large area, and those farmers have got somewhere to go. It assumes that there is some kind of infrastructure that can help protect people who are living next to the river, and those are bigger problems, particularly in the current setup where we are losing lots of our aid funding as well. Again, this is a problem that is not going to be easy to solve.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments? Or?
Yeah, I think regarding the first question, what's really happening right now is climate change is a lived experience, not something that we're studying anymore. Summer's getting hotter every year. Flooding is getting worse every time. So I think, to me, you can't make someone who doesn't want to listen in a way. And what impacted me a lot when I was doing my research in Singapore with my collaborator Gonzalo, who showed me the East Coast, a kind of public beach, and he said, "Why don't you just go for a dip?" And I looked at the sea, and it just kind of piled up by trash, like in the ocean, and there are people swimming amongst the trash. And I've been telling this story to a lot of friends, and almost everybody's reaction is, "Really? Singapore, a developed country?" That's what's interesting to me, is I think that assumption of these kind of environmental issues occur mostly in developing countries. There shouldn't be kind of developed countries' concern. So I think what is really happening to us is getting closer, but because it's impacting so unevenly, and this how inequality really start to emerge, right? Like we've heard from Jeffrey's presentation, how communities get impacted on such different level, even in a place like Singapore, where luxury condos, departments are set on the coast, having these seawalls to protect them from the coast, because you want to be near the river, but the sea is so dirty. So I think that's something we need to think about, is climate change is happening, but how is impacting different communities unevenly, and how do we address that?
Thank you. Really good answer. Any final comments on any of the questions? Yeah.
So the question about the value of water, I'm totally bought into this. We do not value our water properly all around the world. And in my own house, I have to beg my children to value water and turn the tap off when they're cleaning their teeth and things like that. But also in the products that they choose to buy, the amount of photos that they choose to have backed up on their data center servers. So, there are lots of decisions we're making every day where water comes into them and we're just not looking carefully enough. So the more that we can value water in every sense, I think the better our lives will be. And another appeal, do think about where your products are coming from. Do think about conserving water. Do think about when you're turning your shower on and you're waiting for it to heat up, put a bucket underneath and use that water to water your plants. Just the small things, because the more that you do value water in every sense, again, we will be walking into a much brighter future.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you all so much for sharing your amazing wisdom with us today. I don't think I've ever been in such a rich, diverse, global panel. It's been just fantastic to have you all gather here at Welcome and share your global knowledge, and a really moving discussion, I'm sure all of you will agree. So if any of you did have a question and didn't have time, it's lunchtime now, so do grab lunch after. We've now reached the end of the morning panel discussions. Those of you online, we will see you again at 2:20 when we will be joined by Elif Shafak. For those in the room, you'll be pleased to know it's now time for lunch in the Williams Lounge, or head to the Thirst exhibition on level 0 if you are signed up to the 2:20 tour. Do also remember that there are materials to view on climate action on level 2 in our reading room until 4 o'clock. Please be back promptly for 2:20 to hear from the wonderful Elif Shafak. Please join me in thanking our wonderful panel, and thank you all for joining us today. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.